Hello, everyone. Welcome to BizChicks TV. This is the place where you can find tips and tools to help you do business better. We're here to help you run a profitable business that's fun to run and take the hassle out of your hustle. And today we are here with Robin Shimizu talking about happy, healthy habits. How you doing, Robin?
I'm doing just fine today, Terralina. How about you?
All is well. All is well. We're just so happy to have you in the studio today.
I'm happy
And,
to be here.
it's beautiful outside. My goodness, I opened the door and the heat just rushed in and it's early. I was, oh my gosh, it's only like 6 in the morning. What's going on here? But yeah, it's a beautiful summer. And so I'm excited about that. How about you?
I am too. I really am. I just got back from Austin, Texas,
Oh,
where
yes.
it's really, really warm. So I really
Mm,
appreciate Sacramento heat. It's hot here, but it's not quite so muggy.
yes. Yeah,
Uh,
I was in Houston and it was dry, hot and dry in Houston. Was it hot and dry in Austin?
yep. It was
Oh,
it was muggy in Austin.
oh, okay. So, what do you have for us today?
Well, we have an exciting guest today. We have Linus Woods Mullins with us a little later on. So we're very excited. We haven't seen her for a little bit. Today, I thought I would just remind people about the benefits of single tasking.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
We haven't talked about it in a little while. It's just a reminder. I found a little quick article that said that only 2% of people in the world can successfully multitask.
Wow.
And I says, well, there's no harm in occasionally multitasking. Constant juggling between tasks limits your focus and contributes to mental clutter by making it difficult for your brain to filter out irrelevant information.
Mm.
Moreover, according to the study conducted by Stanford University, heavy multitasking lowers efficiency, may impair your cognitive control. This is
Whoa.
why you should try to single task as much as possible. Make a list of things you need to accomplish in a day. Start with the most important task and make your way down the list, completing one task at a time. And then there was another article that I found that had 10 real risks of multitasking. And it just goes on and on about, how bad it is for us to multitask. Um, it's
Wow.
it's associated with harmful to our brains.
I think the key word was they're successful when you first read that first
Yeah,
sentence. I was like,
yeah, yeah.
you can't do it successfully.
Yes, yes.
Mm.
Okay, so the one thought I'm going to leave with people. A recent study found that people who were frequent media multitaskers had reductions in their brain gray matter, specifically in areas related to cognitive control and the regulation of motivation and emotion.
Wow.
So, there's a whole laundry list of reasons why we should try not to multitask because our brain gets kind of confused and it doesn't do one thing well. I mean, it doesn't do multiple things well. And
Uh-huh.
it doesn't like that.
Wow. I just we went through that phase where they were encouraging everybody to multitask and you can do this and that and juggle at the same time. And if you can't, there's something wrong with you. I don't think they took into accountability the error rate.
Good point. So with that, let's bring on Linus because I know she has lots of great things for us today. And just as a real quick introduction to remind people, Linus Woods Mullins is a certified holistic living and wellness expert and certified holistic living and wellness coach for women over the age of 40. Her focus topics are educating women about their mind, body, spirit, wellness, including holistic practices, fitness, nutrition, spiritual renewal.
Mhm.
And she is a very, very, very busy woman. And she has a husband and four grown daughters, and I think five grandchildren now.
Let's, we'll let her bring us up to
Lot.
date. Let's bring her on the stage. There we go.
Well, that whole multitasking thing, then I guess I need to get rid of my two other screens and my other. One of the things I bought while I was on vacation was a little smaller laptop because my big one, I love it, but sometimes heavy to carry if
It
I'm
gets
walking
heavy. Yeah.
Starbucks. So
Mhm.
I didn't buy it. My daughter bought it for me. One day I was sitting in the office that she set up for me in her home in Miami, and she comes into the door and she says, "Mom, you know what? I think that laptop is great, but it's too heavy for you to carry around all the time. So just use this." So she gives me this package and it's a brand new notebook in there. I was like,
Oh,
Oh
"Oh my
goodness.
God." Yeah. So now, since I am a chronic multitasker, my notebook is up and it's on a page and I'm looking for information on that. And I've got these two screens that have my podcast editing's on here and my Gmail's on there and you guys are on here. So after that health nugget, I'm just shutting it all down. Okay.
There you go.
I'm shutting it down. That's for sure.
Take
Hey,
a
it's
different
great to be
perspective.
here. I missed you guys this summer. I've been gone a lot.
yes, we've
Yes.
missed you
Um,
too.
Yeah, I was gone for a little over 9 weeks. I went to
Mm.
San Antonio to visit my granddaughter, my grandchildren, and my daughter.
Yes.
And while I was there, and what my the baby had emergency surgery, so that was really interesting,
Mm.
very traumatic. And I'm telling you this for a reason. I woke up the next morning. He was okay, and when I knew he was okay, I went ahead and got ready to fly to Miami. And when I got up that morning to fly to Miami, I was queasy. I had a headache. I mean, it started throwing up. Come to find out, I had a reaction to taking my supplements on an empty stomach, which I
Mm.
never have. Okay. So I
Mm.
had to cancel that flight and go on later.
Wow.
Couldn't go back to sleep because I was just so sick for the rest of the day. So by the time I got to Miami at 1:30 in the morning, I was exhausted. I had the trauma of not sleeping very well while my grandson was in the hospital and hoping that everything went well with the surgery because
Yes.
they installed a shunt. So it is a form of brain surgery. And then, getting up early in the morning to catch the Uber to go to the airport. And then I get sick and, couldn't go back to sleep. So that was traumatic. Then getting to Miami, my plane came in at 12:30. My daughter was supposed to be there waiting for me. She took the wrong exit. And so she ended up picking me up. It was almost 1:30 by the time she, rolled back around. So that was, a little bit traumatic because it was hot as heck. It was 1:30 in the morning, but it was about 90 degrees outside and extremely, extremely humid. Okay. So
Mhm.
that was a little traumatic. Get in the car. I'm exhausted. Okay. From all the trauma of of the last few days and not sleeping, and I'm beginning to cough a little bit. I can tell I have a sore throat. I'm getting ready to come down with a summer cold, worst thing ever, especially in Miami. So I'm kind of falling asleep. My daughter's talking to me because she's so excited because we have this week planned because my sisters are going to be flying down the next day from California to meet us. We have this whole sister week planned, right?
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
okay.
So yeah. So as we're driving along, I kind of fall asleep, and I swear the way my mind encoded it, I heard the crash before I felt the hit. And all of a sudden, because we were going 60 miles an hour, there weren't that many, praise God, there weren't that many people on the road. It was like almost 2 o'clock in the morning. But we're going 60 because I remember looking at the dashboard and this guy slammed right into the back of us going 70 miles an hour. We start spinning. We spun at least 4 times, maybe 5, and then ended up head first in a ditch on an incline.
Oh no.
Daughter who was holding the wheel and stuff. And I was like, it was like out of body experience. I wasn't panicked or anything,
Mm-hmm.
but I remember telling her, you're doing great. Just hold on to the wheel. Don't fight it. Just go with the wheel. You're doing fine. She kept saying, Mom, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? I said, we've been hit. So just hold on. And as soon as we got into the ditch, we heard this voice, this disembodied voice saying, hello, your car has recorded an impact. Are you okay? And I was like, what the heck is that? And it was from the iPhone we had plugged in. It had,
Mm.
and so then for the next 2 hours, the ambulances and all the first responders and stuff were there. And for 2 hours, we're on the side of the road keeping the statement. So when I finally went home the next morning, I woke up, I had almost no voice. I was exhausted. I had a headache. And the
Mhm.
reason why I probably got even more sick after that was that the trauma that I experienced going up to that point had totally compromised my immune system.
Mhm.
And because I am a wellness coach, I knew enough to make sure I took a lot of D3 and wore a mask and things like that, because I think my immune system for me was compromised. But in particular, after a trauma,
Mhm.
your immune system is compromised. But there are things that you can do to keep the trauma from impacting you. And I'm not talking about the kind of trauma where you're in an accident and you actually get hurt. I'm talking
Uh-huh.
about emotional trauma. For
Okay.
both Imani and I, our trauma was more emotional than physical. We're very lucky. I still have a thing going on with my forearm that just won't go away, and I have to go get an MRI for this to find out what's going on. And she had a back thing and a neck thing, but not really whiplash. She just was not feeling well. But anyway, the next day we went ahead and did all the activities that we planned. I mean, she had so many activities planned that she had a little menu. I printed up and I shared it in the group on Facebook, because I couldn't believe that she was this organized, that she had done all this stuff. And I decided, my mindset was such that, you know what? I had that situation before I got here. I had that situation 30 minutes into being here, but I am not going to let that keep me from doing the things my daughter had planned. So I
Mm.
learned a few things about trauma. The first thing is, with trauma, you want to make sure that you are protecting your immune system. Do whatever's necessary, what you normally would do to increase your immune system. Blueberries, blackberries are definitely important to be eating. You may even want to try some Brazilian nuts. Only three, because it has selenium in there, but selenium will help to make sure that your thyroid is operating properly, because your thyroid sends out messages to the hormones and things like that, and you want to make sure your hormones are balanced. So selenium can be very helpful. Also, you want to make sure you're getting the appropriate amount of rest, which I did not do at all the first 2 weeks after that trauma, because we were
Ah.
entertaining my sisters and hardly ever, I mean, we slept, but it wasn't a restful sleep. But sleep is super important. If your body is feeling tired, you want to sleep. You want to increase your self-care. And bubble baths, nails done, that's fine. But I'm talking about peeling back the layer of self-care in terms of taking care of you and the things that you know that you should be doing, but that you're not doing. One of the things that I did, even in the midst of this trauma, I really upstarted my workout regime. But I really didn't do it because of the trauma, but I learned that there was a great benefit in terms of how I dealt with the trauma. I did it because I started taking pictures, and I was like, oh, who the hell is that? A big old butt and all this going
I
on.
hear you.
Like, oh.
I
So I really went into the gym, which is something I don't do. I walk, I dance. I don't necessarily go to the gym, but I went to the gym and worked out almost an hour and a half, like 16 days in a row, and lost inches and pounds. But the other thing, the offset was, it kept my happy hormones going. So if you're
oh.
able to, after a trauma, to go for a walk in nature, get the sunshine going, to kind of adjust your hormones to get those happy hormones going. Movement is important after a trauma, if you can. And when I keep saying after a trauma, if you can, I'm not talking about when you've been in an accident. If you're in a hospital bed, I'm not expecting you to go and do Zumba. No. But if you've had like, for instance, a traumatic experience could be you witness something, you witness a robbery. That's a traumatic experience.
Mm.
A traumatic experience could be something that happened to you in elementary school. Like, for instance, I had a situation when I was in kindergarten. That's when they used to have you go underneath the desk for the atomic bomb, which is so crazy. I mean, if the bomb's going to come, being under a desk ain't going to stop it. But anyway.
Duck and cover. I remember that.
Right.
Mm.
So there was one time when they had a fire drill, and this was
Mm.
different than the atomic bomb. And I didn't know that it wasn't real. I ran all the way home from school. And I was like 6 years old. I'll never forget that. But that was a traumatic experience for me. Even now, when I hear alarms and things like that, there's something that, signals my body that's like, oh, I get, and then oh no, it's just an alarm. It's a false alarm or whatever. But that was traumatic. And what happens is, especially by the time we reach midlife, we have experienced many traumas, small traumas and huge traumas. And the interesting thing about trauma is that your body keeps the score. The body keeps the score of the trauma. So one thing you want to do, just in general, whether you've had a recent trauma or past traumas, is take care of yourself in different ways. Show compassion to yourself. Make sure you're doing the things that align with your focus on self-care. And I'm like I said, I want to peel back the layers a bit. And I'm not just talking about getting your nails and your hair done, which is
Yes.
something that I know
How do we take care of ourselves in a
well,
situation like
giving yourself some space, allowing yourself to be peaceful, not meditating, not praying, just being. Hopefully out in nature where there's some sun, a little bit of wind on your face, where there's grass and trees, and just allowing yourself to feel. That's extremely important. Allowing yourself to take a nap when you feel like it. Letting go of the guilt anytime you do something that you know you need to do that benefits only you and no one else. I did a lot of that when I was in Miami.
Oh, good. Good.
In the form of shopping, but other things too. Allowing yourself to do those small little incremental things that you normally would put off before you go ahead and do it yourself, and letting go of the self-judgment and of the guilt. A lot of times we as women have a tendency to feel guilty about doing things for ourselves, and we need to let that go. Self-care is watching the words that we say about ourselves and to ourselves, watching our thoughts, changing those thoughts, getting rid of all the negative thoughts, having a mindset that is focusing on what's working instead of focusing on all the things that are wrong, especially focusing on what's working in your personal life.
Okay.
Adopting more of an attitude of gratitude. I am so grateful that we did not die in that car crash. I mean, we could have. If you saw the car, it was crazy. The guy's car and our car was totaled. And we were lucky to be alive. If we had picked up my sisters and they were sitting in the back seat, they wouldn't be with us today.
Wow.
So thanking God for his ultimate control over our lives and entering into really not just an attitude of gratitude, but a lifestyle of gratitude, being thankful for every small, all of these things are things that can help you pull out of the trauma. Now, there's also therapy that you could take, and we talked about that a little bit, and not to get too technical, but there is something called EDMR. And EDMR is a therapeutic practice, it's a holistic practice that helps to basically reprogram you by using something called bilateral stimulation. And bilateral stimulation is achieved when they use various means such as rapid eye movements, auditory tones, or tactile sensations. And the therapist guides you through what to pay attention to while you're doing these exercises. Like, for instance, targeted memories. If there's a memory that you have that is particularly traumatic, usually sometimes it's something in your childhood, or it could have been something that happened yesterday, but normally it's a targeted memory from something in the past. And thinking about those things while you are doing those exercises, that's called dual attention. And what happens is that the client simultaneously is processing the traumatic memory while also engaging in the bilateral stimulation, and it kind of like short circuits out the trauma's ability to elicit an emotional and physical response. There is no trauma that doesn't elicit a physical response. Sometimes it shows up as a disease. Trauma usually has feelings of dis-ease. And if we don't address those feelings, over time, they can become dis-ease. Things like diabetes, obesity, anxiety, depression, heart palpitations, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, all of those, heart disease, all of those things can come from trauma that hasn't been addressed in the body. So I learned, what raised my awareness about this topic was, what happened with me, with my trauma. And I called my therapist immediately because I have an anxiety disorder. I've been delivered from it. I know how to manage it, but I know because of the trigger, because sometimes trauma can bring about triggers. Triggers are, memories or situations that bring back something that's painful. Now, for me, the car accident was a huge trigger because my mother died in a car accident.
Wow.
She was an impact. She was on her way to work and she was hit by a fire truck. She had the green, they had a red, they didn't have a siren. They just plowed right through her. That's very traumatic. So when that happened, I immediately thought to myself, oh God, please don't let us die, because it would be way too traumatic for my family if both Imani and I die in this car crash because of what happened with my mother. And so when as soon as I got back to her place, we got settled, I called my therapist. It was like 5 o'clock in the morning, but she picked up because I never do that. I told her what happened, and she gave me some exercises to do to keep from me getting triggered into anxiety. Breathing exercises. The breath is extremely important. I know it sounds crazy, but how you breathe and when you breathe and the breathing exercises that you do can really help in terms of managing what's going on in the head. Because when you're breathing in oxygen, which turns into red blood cells, and those red blood cells refresh the mind and help us to think differently. Nostril breathing can be very impactful. And so she took me through an exercise where I breathed in for 4 seconds through my nose. I held it for 7 seconds, and then I breathed out for 9 seconds. And I did that throughout my experience. And it made a huge difference in terms of how I handled my trauma. And I'm glad to say that I haven't had any anxiety, hasn't come back at all. If I had not called her and talked it through and talked about other triggers to look for, if I hadn't been self-aware. One of the things about handling trauma is to allow yourself to be self-aware. Many times we push back how we're feeling, what we're thinking. If it doesn't feel good, we don't want to get nervous. We don't want to get anxious. We don't want to be depressed. We push those feelings back, but they don't go anywhere. They come out. So part of handling trauma is to deal with those feelings in whatever way works for you. There's things you can do holistically. There's things you can do in terms of movement. There's things you can do in terms of actual therapy. There are many things that you can do. And one way to figure out what to do is to get with a coach or a therapist that specializes in handling trauma, because it can make a major difference in your life.
Wow. Dr. Tachi's in the house, and so is Maureen. We just want to say hi to you guys. But, we're going through so much in terms of these weather events that this is just really important. And we're going into hurricane season, we're going into fire season, and people are really experiencing some traumatic things.
This whole country is totally traumatized. The politics are traumatizing. The economy has been traumatizing. COVID was traumatizing. What's going on with the whole, for lack of a better description, from the 60s, sexual revolution, that's traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
So many things are traumatizing, and it's all at once. So I don't think there's one person, unless they're living in a cave without a phone or a TV or a radio or a newspaper, hasn't been traumatized, because it's just been ongoing over and over and over again. And that's why I am adding trauma recovery to my coaching practices, because I'm getting certified in it. I've read all kinds of books about it, and I've been going through therapy sessions with my therapist about it. So I'm becoming, the last 10 weeks, I've immersed myself in this. And I can tell you that probably the number one thing about trauma is learning to be really self-aware and self-compassionate. When you start being more self-aware and self-compassionate, it's amazing how you're able to extend that more to others. People are right now on a short fuse. Many people are. People are grouchy. I see people, though, trying to extend themselves to keep from going there. I see that happening. I see people trying to tap more into their humanity, because if we don't do that, then, we don't need some political upheaval to set us off. We can set ourselves off. So because we are at this stage of high trauma, the idea of extending people grace, extending yourself grace, being compassionate, being self-aware. Stop pushing back those feelings and emotions. Deal with them and get some help for it, so that when other traumas come, you're not piling on top of it. You've dealt with that trauma. You're aware that it happened, but you have the skills to deal with it, rather than just ignoring it. These kinds of things that I'm talking about might require an investment, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them are free. But sometimes you need help in how to use them, need help in kind of how to work through the process so that you use the tools properly, but they're very impactful. And being traumatized, having trauma doesn't mean that you have to have drama. You don't.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, there's a way you can move through your trauma and not have trauma. And I'm going to be talking about a lot of this on August 24th. And if you put my link tree up there, you'll see the link to my webinar about resilience and what you can do to keep the trauma turning into drama. It's going to be, where is it? Let's see, it's right there. No, where is it? Weight loss, maybe it's in, there it is, new masterclass, Mastering a Resilient Mind, Embracing Self-Compassion and Moving Past Trauma, Stress, and Anxiety.
Okay.
It's going to be a great masterclass. It's an hour and a half, no cost to you at all. Really important. I haven't promoted it a lot, but I'm going to really start promoting it because there's so many people who could use the information I'm going to share to help them begin their healing process or to help them figure out what the next step is in their process to heal. Because this trauma thing, impacts our bodies. And I'm going to be talking about the kinds of things you should be eating during a trauma, the kinds of things that you can do to improve your gut health so that your gut health is not in play in terms of how you're encoding your trauma. Because if your gut health is off, then your trauma is definitely going to be even more so. But keeping our gut healthy so that when trauma comes, helps us to deal with the trauma and the stress and anxiety that comes with it so much better. So I'll be talking about all of that.
Very good.
This is fascinating information, Linus. We haven't talked about this at all ever on the show.
You know, I know, and awesome. A lot of people aren't really talking about it. They're talking about segments of it or whatever. But I really feel like my background of my personal experience has really prepared me for this because I have the piece holistically in terms of nutrition and movement and all that part. Yeah. And now I have, I've had traumas in my life. Who hasn't? I have the piece about anxiety and stress and how to manage that. So now this last piece with trauma, this book, it's called, I keep it right next to me. It's called The Body Keeps Score. It was one of the first books ever written about trauma and the way that he writes it in terms of the mind-body connection. And how important it is to keep those things healthy in response to trauma, but also just proactively. And this thing, I've talked to the guy who wrote this book. I found him and I talked to his staff, the people his researchers. I got in touch with him. I was just so fascinated by this. And they sent me a lot of their research materials and things like that. This is based on science. It's not woo-woo. And it's a science that is easy to understand and something that we can actually do for ourselves so that we can stay healthy and not become a victim of trauma through our bodies, through illnesses and all of that. The reason why COVID hit us so hard is because our immune systems were very much compromised. The reason why our immune systems are so compromised is because of the stress and the pace within which we live our lives and the undealt with trauma that we've had that we just haven't dealt with. That's the reason why. In our society, we don't eat the way we should. We already know that. We don't rest enough, but we also don't know how to holistically release trauma. We don't have a lot of herbs and stuff. We're not eating fresh foods. There's so many things that contribute to how our body encodes trauma. We need to really change our lifestyles because the trauma is not going to go away. But how our bodies react to it and how we react to it from an emotional standpoint, that can change. We can change that.
Well, it's really interesting, too, that some people might not acknowledge or realize that they had trauma. Yes. And so this class will be good for people who may not even think that they had any trauma.
Right, exactly.
They just dealt with it, right?
We all have had trauma. If your life has been perfect, no one's died, you graduated on time, you got a great job, you have an 800 credit score, if your life has been perfect, just living in this country the last few years has been traumatic. Yeah. Heck, living in this country the last 400 years, when you think about our history or any country's history, but in particular, and that's because of the way that we chose to set up our systems and what we were trying to do or what they were trying to do when they discovered that this country was very different than any other country. And that trauma of trying to do it differently and how they set up the systems and everything else has carried itself right on up to 2023 because we never dealt with the impact of that. That's why some people don't understand, well, what are you talking about slavery? That was 400 years ago or 300 years ago. How could that possibly traumatize you now? And it's not so much about it traumatizing us now because it's not going on, but the systems that slavery supported and how our country was built That's traumatic. And you can't build something and not deal with that trauma. That energy goes right on through our systems and
Mm.
everything else. That's not woo woo. That's fact. And he talks about that. It's very understandable why our society overall, not just Black people, but people in general, are traumatized by how our society was built and the energy it brought with us, because we have never really effectively dealt with it. We've personalized it. We got angry over it, all that stuff, but we haven't gotten the tools really in a countrywide basis to deal with it in a effective and impactful way that's not personal.
That would allow us to heal as a country.
Yeah, in a healing way. It's not
Mhm.
personal. I'm not thinking that every white person I've seen wants to put me back in shackles. That's not what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking anything like that at all. But somewhere in there is this energy of, well, these days especially, it's like,
Now look
are
at
you
this
one of
way.
those people?
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the news and all the things that are going on. People are traumatized just thinking about going to shop after they see swarms of people breaking into Nordstrom's and just carrying out goods and spraying security guards with bear spray. They're
Think
thinking,
about, right. Think about how traumatic it is these days for parents to send their children to school. Let's just think
yes,
of that.
and they
There's
see what's
trauma in that.
happened in other school districts.
Yep.
And the other day there was something on the news about the fact that the school bus system for the first day of school wasn't working, and some of the kids didn't get home till 10 o'clock, and there was no communication to the parents. They didn't know where the children were, whether they were on the bus, not on the bus. Can you imagine? That is trauma.
Very much so, especially these days.
Everyday life can come up with new things that traumatize us.
Oh, absolutely. In
And
fact,
so I think that this
social
class,
media is social media is traumatizing.
exactly.
Social media is traumatizing, whether it's your trauma or not. Watching these things over and over again. I know a lot of people have been watching the tape of what happened in Alabama, and people rushing to the aid of a man, of a security guard who was being beat up.
Oh,
And a lot of people have been, joking about it and everything else. But watching that thing over and over again, that can be traumatizing for some people. It can have triggers for some people, of people they've known who've went through something like that who didn't survive it. I mean, they're making memes out of it. And actually, people shooting humor at it is a way of dealing with trauma.
dealing with,
Yes. In fact, I was listening to a therapist the other day, and he was saying, I know some people think, oh, that's so inappropriate. How could they laugh at that or whatever? He says, no, this is how some people deal with trauma.
you got to
It's through
process
humor,
things.
through laughter. They're doing something to eradicate some of that. And it is kind of funny because a friend of mine sent me her a copy of her Amazon order, and she ordered a little charm that's in the shape of a chair. And the reason why the chair thing is so funny, in a way, is that during this whole altercation,
Oh, you're talking about the folding chair?
yeah, the guy got a folding chair and hit a
Started
woman with the head,
wailing people.
something like that. Yeah, because things were kind of like out of control. And then after that, everybody started making fun about carrying chairs to a fight. You get up and say, someone stepped on my toe. Oh, really? I'm gonna get my chair. That kind of thing. And so someone came up with the idea of creating a charm in the image of a folding chair. And so she was like, well, can you believe it? Was like 2 days later. But this is a way for some people to deal with their trauma. It may seem totally inappropriate, but at least they're addressing a feeling. They're putting a sense of humor behind it. When you don't address the trauma at all, you just kind of push it back. It becomes what I call that you stepped on my toe syndrome. Back in the day in the garage parties, people are dancing and stuff, and somebody's got on their blue suede shoes and somebody steps on their foot, and that guy, you stepped on my foot. Next thing you know, they're duking it out.
There's a fight.
He is not fighting because he stepped on his toe. He's fighting because of the accumulation of occurrences that have angered him that he never dealt with. And so now it's erupted to that. That's what trauma, that's a form of trauma. All the traumas he's had that he didn't deal with. And my goal, especially for women over 40, is to get us to admit that we have trauma, and then to come up with something that is doable and workable that can help you work through that trauma. And that will make a difference in terms of your body, how you're feeling in your body, how your hormones, because the other thing is that when we're in midlife, our hormones are going, things are happening, and that causes changes as well. And you have all this outer stimuli that you can't control, but you can control how your body decides to react to it by getting help with dealing with whatever your traumas have been. So
Beautiful. Well, wow. Well, I'm just, this subject is so new for me. I'm just like, okay, where do we go from here? But I want to thank you, Lennis, for just, first of all, helping us to acknowledge that we have trauma and then giving us some tools to handle trauma. Oh my gosh.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, it is a lot. I just had to breathe. I caught you when you talked about that breathing. I'm like, okay, let me just take
Taking a deep
4
cleansing
in.
breath, taking 3 deep cleansing breaths can be impactful. In fact, let me lead you to an exercise real quickly, okay?
Okay.
Because what we talked about was traumatic, okay? First of all, yeah, take 3 deep cleansing breaths, okay? On the count of 4, you're going to breathe in 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold it. 1, 2. Breathe out. 1, 2, 3, 4. You want to take the breath in through your mouth. Inhale, hold it for 2 counts. Exhale, this time through your nose for 4 counts. Breathe in, exhale, or inhale, breathe in through your mouth. 4 counts. Hold it for 2 counts. Then breathe out through your nose for 4 counts, okay? So you inhale 4 counts through your breath, hold it for 2 counts, and then exhale 4 counts through your nose. Do that about 3 or 4 times, and it kind of resets you.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you should already begin to feel a little bit of calm or reset. Yeah, I will do that. We need to be, yeah, I always say all the time, we're a nation of non-breathers. I didn't understand how true that really is. We walk around holding our breath all the time because we're kind of like, preparing ourselves for the next thing, that, that flight or fright response. But also we need to start breathing because it can help us deal with the feeling of fear and anxiety and even depression. It can help us with that. So deep breathe, everybody.
There were so many great nuggets today, Linus. One that I have circled that I really want to remember is this lifestyle of gratitude. I loved that statement. And it's really true.
Yes, absolutely. If you have survived a trauma of some kind, one that you do remember, because sometimes we have little traumas that we don't really remember, that right there is a reason to be just grateful. Just grateful. Those parents who have had the trauma of losing a child, I don't know how you ever overcome that.
I don't know.
But at least maybe being grateful that you're still here, maybe to help others go through something like that, or you're still here because you still have loved ones that you can spend time with. You're still here to keep your child's memory alive. I mean, those are things to truly be grateful for. And I'm sure I feel that a lot of the parents have gone through some kind of therapy dealing with their trauma, and they probably understand exactly what I'm talking about. It's not negating what's happened. Dealing with your trauma doesn't mean that you're trying to push it back and not recognize what's happening. It's just the opposite. You're recognizing what's happening and the fact that you need help in dealing with it so that you can move forward in a way that's healthy and a way that minimizes the impact of the trauma to your body.
Yeah. Very good. Wow. Well, what can I say? We really needed this today. And I just want to thank you so much for coming in today and helping us to identify and acknowledge and figure out how to deal with trauma. Wow. So I want people to be aware that you're having this class. When is the class?
Yes, it's on August 24th at 10:30. It's going to be through Zoom. So if you go to my link tree, you can just sign up. It's absolutely free. And I really do hope all of you come. Those who register will get the replay, but I hope that everybody does come, because I am going to be talking a lot about a resilient mindset. And a resilient mindset is one that can help support you dealing with traumas and triggers, anxiety and stress that you deal with every day, whether you realize it or not. It's there. And the whole idea is just keep this from contributing to an illness that you might get or that you may already have. Let's say somebody with diabetes, if they haven't released some of this stuff and they're not dealing with it, their symptoms become that much more exacerbated as a result. So it's really a preventative medicine, if you will, dealing with it so that it doesn't keep you in the quagmires of sickness. If you do have a chronic disease, it makes your symptoms a little bit less intense. So
thank you so much, Linus. This is so, it was very, very eye-opening.
thank you. Good. I'm glad that it was. I'm glad. But both of you guys are like, what?
But I get it now, and it is applicable to all of us.
Yes, it is.
So I want
Really
to find out from Robin who is coming on next week.
Oh, next week we have Maureen Stevenson.
Okay.
She's our a lifestyle coach as well. So we're always excited to hear from Maureen. And then right after that, we have Linus back.
Oh,
So,
great.
And I promise it will not be quite as heavy. I do have something I want to talk about when it comes to weight release next week.
Okay.
Or
Oh,
recap.
weight release. I love
Great.
it.
Thank
I
you
could
so
use
much.
that.
Linus.
You're
Okay.
welcome. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
All right. We just want to remind everybody to follow Linus. She has a Facebook group, and also you might want to check her out on Instagram. She is everywhere. So we want you to know that she is looking for you, and you are looking for her, whether you know it or not, to help you navigate this new lifestyle. So with that, we want to recommend that you follow Linus. Also, we want to remind you that if you're looking to become a part of BizChicks, you can join BizChicks by simply texting Biz to 33777, or you can find us over on our website at bizchicks.net. We'd love to have you join us so that we can share with people what it is you do and how you serve. So, with that, we'll see you tomorrow. We'll be talking tech in English, in other words, in easy to understand terms that can help you do business better, because BizChicks is here to help take the hassle out of your hustle. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.